you travel a lot, and I would love for our listeners to learn from you in a way of how to stay grounded, or how to stay like the rituals or the practices or the things that you do while you travel, because you not only travel for leisure, but you travel for work a lot. Every time I'm texting you, you're like, oh, I'm just leaving for South Africa, or I'm just getting back from Bosnia or something. Like you travel a lot. So I'd love for our listeners to learn, like, what are some of your favorite easy, simple things that you do to stay grounded, stay centered, stay healthy while you're traveling?
Absolutely. And I think that the first thing is just like honoring the uniqueness of each journey that you take. So everything is, influenced when you travel, from like the season that you're going to the companions that you're traveling with and the purpose behind every trip that you take. And so I think that this too, there's like an evolution. And I called it here an intention setting, from when you're a kid in the younger years to when, recently it's been more like spiritual modalities and practices that I've incorporated. But one thing that I love to do, which is kind of funny, is I take like a selenite wand that I have.
And what's selenite?
Which selenite?
What is selenite for people listening that might not know?
It's a crystal.
Okay.
So a crystal, it kind of looks like a clear quartz. So like very clear in the middle. You can kind of
travel with it.
Translucent. Yeah. And it's like a wand, so it has a little bit more substance. So it's not going to break easily in your bag. So I throw it in my carry-on or checked bag. And it's kind of like bringing sage on a trip without having like a candle and a flame and all this stuff. You're really like clearing. To me, I believe selenite holds the power of clearing. And I bring that along, and whether it's an Airbnb, a hotel, a retreat center, anything, like having it and kind of going through that ritual of taking it out and decorating my space, and then also remembering the intention of like clearing, and that this is my journey and this is new for me. And it's just been such a beautiful thing that I've incorporated. I also think that, for example, like something that I'd love to share is that, so I wanted to share my love of travel and also incorporate spirituality into my bachelorette when we went to Sedona, Arizona, actually. But it's an energy vortex, and it's also in my astral cartography. So I've actually felt so connected to that since I was 9 years old.
Wow.
And I returned when I was 29 years old.
Wow.
So this full circle of 20 years, to return. And just sharing like the joy of connecting in nature, hiking the vortices, Bell Rock, going for dips in the creek, like cooking food with your friends and like not needing to go out to dinner all the time. We did a dinner where actually when we did go out to dinner, we intentionally set like basically the table placings where everyone was like in their astral element or like astrology element. So all the fire signs sat together, all the water signs, and like everyone ended up loving it. But like not all my friends are like super like woo-woo or into spirituality. So that was super cool. And I think that's intention setting for a trip in a big way, you know? So that's another example. And then understanding relationships. Another one that I wanted to bring up, and probably the intimacy that comes about with like taking road trips and like long road trips with anyone, you get super close to them. But someone that I've seen evolve and grow and change so much in that journey of travel and learn so much about themselves, the world, and become more interested in global affairs is my husband, Alex. And so we actually just recently got back from a beautiful summer in the Balkans. And we were road tripping together. But what I learned about my husband's astrology recently is that his rising and moon signs are in Cancer, which is my sun sign. But they say that like that rising sign or that placement in a rising sign in particular, they want to bring the whole house with them when they travel.
Right.
But you and I know how hard that is, especially when you're going overseas. You have like one checked bag. So we've taken a couple road trips in the States where we were able to bring his weights, his boogie board, his guitar, his chessboards.
Oh my God.
But in the Balkans, all we had was like this stuffed horse that we've had since the beginning of our relationship, Bullseye. And so we just put him on the dashboard of the car. And I think that like made him feel like more at home and more connected and like ready to go and be on this trip, but still carry home along with him. So
that's awesome. So that reminds me a lot of, I believe it's episode 9 with Zoe Cardiff. She's an astrologer, and she talks about how you can use astrology to plan travel, to make your travels easier for you. And so that's something that's really cool is if you're a rising sign in Cancer or a moon sign in Cancer, maybe bringing like 1 to 2 small things from home that are going to really make you feel like you have that home feeling, because Cancers love to hunker down at home
yes,
and feel like they're safe within their own shell. And so I think that's really cool. That's something that's
Yeah.
I've never even thought about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, look into Sam's rising sign. and
Yeah,
moon
I know he's a
sign.
Cancer sun, so I'm with you on that one.
Perfect.
The very last thing I'd love is just to open it up if you want to share anything else with our audience before we go into our rapid fire questions at the end. Is there anything else you want to share with them about you or your journey or lessons?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk a little bit about like integrating after
Yeah, for
travel,
sure.
if that's all right. So, because this was one of the main, and I've talked about some of the most transformative trips I've ever taken on my life, but this kind of emotional struggle of like returning home to this fast-paced and Western society
100%.
after such a transformative retreat experience can definitely be like a shell shock or, a shock to the system. And so I remember there was one point, and I know that you want to move to Costa Rica, but there was one point I was looking into Punta Mona. My husband was like going crazy. He's like, what is she doing now? And I'm like, I'm going to move to a permaculture farm and like live in community and grow our own food. And I'm done with this Western thing. And then I'm like, okay, but no, like, how do I like bring some of what I've learned back? How do I make my life kind of reflect more of like these retreat spaces that I've experienced? And it was kind of this idea. So first of all, I think there's this huge and this big idea of acceptance and acceptance of how you're feeling and like grief of moments that have passed. And there was this powerful moment in the kitchen in Maui where I talked to my friend Dorian, and I asked her how she kind of dealt with like the end of retreats because she had gone to a lot. And she was like, it's about like the accepting and passing of the beautiful moment and like really recognizing, the second part then is like once you allow yourself to grieve that, you can recognize a deeper meaning in your life, but even with routine tasks and like around routine people but like also when you stop to think about it, you see how much you have right in front of you. And I remember, I started bringing more spiritual modalities to Deloitte. They have their own version of human design called business chemistry. And I actually compared Deloitte's business chemistry to astrology one day. And I put this like PowerPoint, and you who are consultants know how much we like our slide decks.
Oh, yeah.
So I put together this PowerPoint of like all the astrology signs and how they like related to all the various, archetypes of business chemistry. And I also told my team recently on a trip, I'm like, I'm so grateful because I think your vibe attracts your tribe. And through everything that I've gone through has led me to this team. It was also the team I came back to after I had taken that leave from work. And I said that I feel like this is my work tribe. And that was a really powerful and transformative moment for me. And it was a moment that I'm like, hey, I'm seen and appreciated for what I do. And also I appreciate these people so much and I'm learning so much here. So it's like finding soul tribe in unlikely places or places that you didn't see before you had like a new eye, a new lens to really appreciate.
Right.
So one of the realizations I had come to, and I think I also listened to a podcaster, was essentially the goal of integration ultimately is to obliviate the need for it entirely. Because if we're living a life where this is the dream that we've manifested, we've created, and our life starts to reflect more of our manifestation, the more we align, the more we step into our power, the more we travel, learn, experience. If we can bring this back home, and you've done such a beautiful job of that in Rising Nature Retreats, then that eliminates the need for this integration altogether, right?
100%.